Hi, this is Claudia Filos with the Center for Hellenic Studies, and we're here today with some members of our Hour 25 community and with our visiting scholar for today, Professor Seemee Ali. Thank you so much for joining us. Seemee, how are you today?
Hi there. I am so happy to be here. I'm so honored to be here. Claudia, thank you for having me.
Oh, great. I just want to share a few words with our community members. First about you, and then just about our session today. So first, I want to let everyone know that you teach at Carthage College, where you hold a joint appointment with the Interdisciplinary Great Ideas Program and the English Department, and that your most recent essay, Wallace Stevens' Scrawny Cry, appears in the Lyric Prospect. And you're now working on a book about immortality and finitude in the Iliad, tentatively entitled The Reconciliation of Hera and Zeus. So we're so delighted to have you. Again, I just want to let our community members know we're experiencing a few technical difficulties today with Hangout. Connections seem a little bit slow. You may see some people drop in and out because of that, but don't worry. We're going to keep going on. If for any reason you should lose your connection and you were a viewer, you should be able to click again on the event link to watch the Hangout if you lose your connection. If for whatever reason we should have to start a new Hangout with a different event URL, we will post that on the Google Plus event page. So we welcome everybody who is here in the room and who's watching just on Google Events. Thanks so much for joining us. And I see Michael has joined us as well. So I'd like to turn over to you right now, Seemee, and I would just like to hear a few words from you maybe about how you got interested in this project, maybe share the title of the topic we're going to discuss today, and we'll just get the ball rolling.
Sure. So I should start by saying that one of the reasons I'm so honored to be here and so delighted to be here is that I come at this from a different angle. I'm not a linguist. I'm not a philologist. I'm not a classicist. My training is more, my training is in literary criticism. I did my graduate studies in American literature. But many years ago, I started teaching the Homeric epics in general education courses to freshmen, and I fell in love with them, in short. And I realized that to enter into the poetry in the way that I wanted to understand the intricacies and the subtleties of the poems, I needed to learn Greek. This is a real work. It's an epic adventure in itself. And so I continue in my studies of the language. And so I came to be able to make my way through these epics with all sorts of help, and a great deal of help also from the amazing criticism of the poetry that's out now. It seems just in this generation, you might call it the Nage School of Criticism, has opened up the poems for someone like me, that is someone who sees parts and wants to make connections, sees and feels a certain kind of poetic integrity to these epics. So in my sort of way of coming at this project of writing a book about the Iliad, I depend absolutely on the work of these philologists and linguists and classicists, even as I approach the work poetically, you might say.
Right. Well, that's such a beautiful story, and we're so inspired by that because so many members of our community have also been inspired by the work that we've been reading from Professor Knowledge, just from engaging with the text, and so we share that experience of just being totally blown away by the poetry and just thinking, I need to get more, I need to see more, I need to go deeper. So we're so delighted to have this conversation with you today about this. So where would you like to start today?
Well, why don't we start with the title? So I called this talk Eros and Cosmos, approaching the Golden Cloud of Iliad 14. And so we might just begin by defining those terms. Eros, of course, means a longing for completion or wholeness, the state of being that concerns Plato in the Symposium. And Cosmos means order. It can also mean beauty in Greek. And so my hope in our conversation is to show you something about how I think Hera and Zeus, and indeed the Olympian gods generally, long for order. They long for cosmos. And I think what I'd like to show you is that I think that Hera and Zeus achieve this through Eros, through their own longing for each other as well. Okay. So that's rather abstract language, I am aware, and I hope I can make this more concrete as we move through the lines of the poem together. I should say also that this portion of the poem, Iliad 14, the seduction scene, has been, people don't quite know what to do with it sometimes. Some scholars have actually thought it doesn't belong in the poem. We can call it, we can call this episode an episode of divine burlesque, and it has that sort of comic feeling about it sometimes. But what I'm interested in and what I wanted to talk about was a certain kind of a seriousness about it. There is something at stake in this story, and I think we can see that emerge as we look at the lines. We might say that the episode in which Hera and Zeus come together in this golden cloud is the pivot on which the whole rapport between the gods of the Iliad turns. And so if you recall, from the very first, Hera and Zeus have been squabbling, arguing. Zeus has been behaving tyrannically. He has threatened violence. He threatens violence not only against Hera, but against the other gods too. He offers in Book 8 a kind of chest-beating speech in which he announces his plan for the war. And this plan is going to involve Hector, of course, prevailing, winning, vanquishing the Greeks until Patroclus dies and Achilles emerges to win his honor and to defend, out of love for his friend. So this is what we know already when we come to Book 14. There's a kind of the poem keeps showing us again and again a certain kind of violent and tyrannical impulse in Zeus, and on the other hand, a kind of incredible, deep resentment on the part of Hera. So, yes.
I'm just wondering if community members have any, reaction to what you're saying so far. Any thoughts about?
Feel free to interrupt.
Yeah, is that okay? Anyone have anything yet?
Hi, Bill Moulton. The only thing that came to mind, all that you said about him being tyrannical, that's very, very true. And yet, early on, we see a scene where the gods rebelled against him, and he has to be rescued by an old friend. And
Yes.
Interesting counterbalance. How strong he always brave. I can beat you all. I can pull you all. I can do all this stuff to you. And yet, we know a moment when a minor goddess had to rescue him. I never know how to work those two together, but it's an interesting counterbalance that you need to keep in mind sometimes.
Oh, it's very important, that episode that you're referring to in Book 1. We're talking about Thetis and her aid when Poseidon and Hera and Athena attempt a coup against Zeus. So I'm very glad you brought that up, because there's a feeling of constant tension, it seems to me, that episode reminds us of. It reminds us that Zeus's rule is still very young, and that his own wife, his own brother, his own daughter, Athena, are ready to revolt against him. So what we might feel is a certain kind of defensiveness, a certain kind of energy that is from Zeus that is violently opposed to the very gods he needs, actually, if there's going to be a kind of cosmic order.
And I love what... Sorry, please, go.
Go ahead.
Well, no, I was just saying I love what you're sort of leading us towards, which is that that Eros is one of the ways that this order can be created, and especially as Bill is prompting us to think back in the mythical timeline. If we think all the way back to the theogony, as if that goes all the way back, which I know you're pointing us towards as well. I mean, Eros is really what helps to create the order in the first place. So it's so exciting.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, at the beginning, right? So,
Great. So take us through it.
Sure. I'm glad you mentioned the theogony. I'm going to borrow a term that I learned from Leonard Muehlner. And this has to a kind of metonymic logic, right? That he sees both in the theogony and in the Iliad. So let's just remember that Hera and Zeus have this dark history. They have come to power because Zeus has overthrown his father. In turn, Kronos overthrew his father. And if we think about their history, there's a kind of repetition that seems imminent. It seems like it's about to erupt here. That is to say, in each prior generation, there has been a tyrannical husband and a very shrewd, cunning, intelligent wife who leads the revolt against him. And it looks as though Homer is giving us the ingredients for another repetition of the same cycle. And what I think happens in Iliad 14 is that together, but perhaps mainly through Hera's imaginative intervention, together Hera and Zeus are going to find a way out of this nightmare, this recurring nightmare in which the male spouse in the divine couple becomes a tyrant and the female leads an opposition against him, which ultimately results, of course, in her being deposed as well. Or being retired. So something is, I think that history is part of the story. And we know that because Hera herself alludes to it when she speaks with Aphrodite.
Great. So can you guide us towards some of the passages that you feel will help us sort of think about this and read this together, maybe?
Yes. Yes. Let's see. Why don't we go to the beginning of the passage at line 153.
Okay, so just to let our community members know who are watching, so if you're joining us on Google Plus, or if you're watching on the Hour 25 website, on the blog you'll see that we have some handouts where we have the focus passages printed out for you to follow along. But just for reference, Seemee is talking about Book 14, beginning at line 153. So if you have a translation at your hands that is different, feel free to read along.
So, the epithet that we hear in the opening of this scene, let's just say, Poseidon has decided he is flouting Zeus's orders. Zeus has commanded the gods to stay out of the battle, and the situation is such, the Greeks are losing so badly. Poseidon is also so disgusted with Zeus that he feels free to do what he will. And he's entering the battle. Hera sees her brother entering the battle and decides to aid him by distracting Zeus. And at this moment, we are told that Hera of the Golden Throne sees what is happening, and she makes a plan. So this epithet is really interesting. It appears not very frequently in the Iliad. The first time she's called Hera of the Golden Throne, she is lying down in bed with Zeus in 1. And then the only other times that Hera receives that epithet are the moments that frame this episode. So just before she seduces Zeus in Book 15, we'll hear the epithet again. So it's a curious epithet. We might think immediately that the throne is a golden chair, a sign of her majesty. There is a story of a golden chair that Hephaestus has made for Hera. It's a rather dark story because Hera is trapped on this throne. Hephaestus is angry with his mother. So that's one strange allusion. But the Greek word throna has other meanings as well. So it can mean a kind of seat or chair or sign of power. It can also refer to flowers, and it can also refer to love charms. So she's called Hera of the Golden Throne. She's associated, I really think, all of these significations, the majesty, the fertility of nature, and the power of seduction are all already somehow being invoked at this first moment when we see her, looking around, seeing her brother entering the battle, seeing her husband, looking at him and thinking, she must do something. She must do something. So already in the economy of this poetic epithet, we have a clue to where she's going.
Beautiful. So is this something you would like us to read together, or do you think we should sort of move on, or are there thoughts to this so far in the community? Anyone?
So that, yeah, I was just really struck by what you were saying about that epithet of the thronos and the other meaning and the flowers, because that's the word that's used, isn't it, when Andromache's weaving with the flowers?
Yes.
Not knowing that Hector's died?
Yes.
Same word?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So those resonances really ripple through, don't they?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, maybe we should just keep that in mind. It does seem, I mean, it seems as though the episode begins with flowers and ends with flowers somehow. Begins with this throna and ends with the eruption of the crocus and the lotus and the hyacinth at the moment that Zeus and Hera come together. So why don't we just read and sort of go forward. Maybe we can begin with Hera's preparations at about 170, I think, in the handout.
Hey, Sarah, would you like to read for us?
Okay, so at line 170.
Yes.
She cleansed all the dirt from her fair body with ambrosia. Then she anointed herself with olive oil, ambrosia very soft, and scented especially for herself. If it was so much as shaken on the bronze-floored house of Zeus, the scent pervaded the universe of heaven and earth. With this she anointed her delicate skin, and then she plaited the fair ambrosial locks that flowed in a stream of golden tresses from her immortal head. She put on the wondrous robe which Athena had worked for her with consummate art, and had embroidered with manifold devices. She fastened it about her bosom with golden clasps, and she girded herself with a girdle that had 100 tassels. Then she fastened her earrings, 3 brilliant pendants, with much charm radiating from them, through the pierced lobes of her ears, and threw a lovely new veil over her head. She bound her sandals onto her feet, and when she had finished making herself up in perfect order, she left her room and called Aphrodite to come aside and speak to her.
That's wonderful. How beautifully read. Thanks. So maybe I could just say a couple of things that come to my mind, and if others have comments, I'd love to hear them too. So she is preparing herself, and we've seen other scenes where characters get dressed in the Iliad. And generally, these are arming scenes. You can think of, for example, the amazing armor that Agamemnon puts on in Book 11. You can think about Achilles' preparations. So, and careful attention is paid to these warriors as they prepare for battle. And we see them as they get ready. And something like that seems at hand here. Something is about to unfold. So whenever whenever the poem, I should say, allows us to see this kind of careful preparation, it's a kind of build-up, you might say, to something serious, a kind of contest that's coming next.
Janet, I see you shaking your head. I'm wondering what you're thinking about this, this creation of personal cosmos, personal adornment, and what Professor Ali is leading us towards in terms of sort of cosmic order.
I was thinking about the build-up. Every detail is mentioned here. The way she moves, the way she puts things on, and her jewelry, every single detail. So we are waiting something very important to happen very soon.
Yes. Yes. So there's another object with 100 tassels in the Iliad, and that is the aegis of Zeus, which strikes terror in the hearts of men when it shakes. And it also has 100 tassels, just as the garment that Hera is wearing. And she's wearing a perfume whose scent seems to pervade heaven and earth. And you have the sense of her putting on a power that is, it is cosmic, as you say, Claudia. I think at the end of this episode, it is the case that the poem gives us a line in which we hear that Hera has arrayed herself in cosmos.
Yeah, in perfect order. That's amazing.
Yes. So she arms herself, you might say, in beauty. She arms herself in cosmos. Now, yes, Janet.
It's like a ritual. She cleans herself. She starts with cleaning herself. She's going to perform a ritual in a way.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. There's a lot more to say, and maybe I'll come back to it.
Good. I know. Okay.
But you're absolutely right, Janet. Given this ritualistic and extremely sort of beautiful preparation, you might think, well, I guess the question is, who does she go to see first? The description we just read of her dressing suggests that she's quite gorgeous already, that she's armed now in cosmos, she's armed in beauty. And who does she seek out but Aphrodite? She goes to see Aphrodite, and I'm going to suggest something that's kind of strange. I don't think anyone else has said this, and I'm just going to go out on a limb in this. And I'm going to suggest to you that I think all these preparations, the perfume, the earrings, the tassels, are not only for Zeus. I think Hera is also girding herself in beauty in order to meet her arch enemy, let's say, Aphrodite. Mm-hmm. And if you think about the coyness and the indirection and the guile of flirtation, and you keep that in mind as you notice what happens next between Aphrodite and Hera, I think you'll see why I think such a thing. So when Hera has clothed her body in cosmos, in loveliness, in beauty, she goes out from her chamber and she calls Aphrodite aside, apart from all the rest of the gods. Now imagine if you see Hera having prepared herself in this way. And she asks for a private audience with you.
And right now you're around line 190, right?
Thank you. Yes, exactly, around 190. So Hera speaks to Aphrodite and asks a favor. And she says, but would you do me a favor, or are you always going to be angry with me? Because I defend the Greeks and you love the Trojans. Now, immediately, Aphrodite wants to do whatever Hera wants. Let me just ask how that sounds to the rest of you so far.
I think Aphrodite being, the goddess of love and pleasure and all pleasant things, that she's going to immediately think, hey, we can do something nice here, and she's going to tend towards that. I mean, you see what a failure she is in the battlefield. Anger and nastiness is not her forte.
Right, right. So I think I think she's no match for Hera in this sense.
Plus, I think you make a good point that Hera's getting all dressed up. She's pulling her aside from the others. She's doing this all the proper way if you want to get a favor from somebody. And quite often you don't see that happen with Hera. So this is a big effort on her part.
Right, right. And Hera, it's easy to think of Hera as being shrewish, maybe a little bit crone-like, maybe ugly on the outside in some way, because we see so much of her resentment in the poem. But in the lines that we heard so beautifully read, it's clear that she is a beauty in herself and can manifest that beauty powerfully whenever she wants, and can even, I'm going to suggest, she can even subdue Aphrodite in this way. So I see Janet has her microphone off, and I saw Michael actually did a moment ago too. So in case you have a comment, I would like to hear from both of you if you both have comments.
Aphrodite says, Hera, August, queen of goddesses, daughter of mighty Kronos. Is there any August? This epithet, is there a significance there that the way she Aphrodite addresses Hera?
It's a wonderful question, and the Greek word is presba. So she's referring to Hera as the eldest of all the goddesses, the most senior of all the deities. It's a term of deep respect, and I think a sense of sort of political, we might even say political stature that she's conceding to Hera at this moment.
And daughter to Kronos, which is interesting, right? Because recently, I think our community has thought a little bit about the epithet, the daughter of Zeus, in terms of Aphrodite and Athena. Sorry, but I was going to ask Michael if Michael's unmuted, so I was hoping he might have a comment or a thought to share.
No, although I would like to know what Seemee thinks about that epithet.
The daughter of Kronos? Is that the epithet? Well, I do think every time Kronos is mentioned in this episode and elsewhere in the Iliad, we are reminded of his absence, and we're reminded why he's absent. We're reminded of that sordid history. So Aphrodite calls her the daughter of Kronos. She remembers, and we remember as she's saying it, that Kronos is not in charge. Now Hera and Zeus are in charge. So that epithet seems to move on many levels. One as a sort of formulaic sign of respect, you might say, and another, from the point of view of the poem, a very clear indicator of the story behind this story, you could say.
Would you be willing to also add the thought that this is also at least potentially Hera's claim to rule?
Absolutely, it's Hera's claim to rule. Thank you. So in Book 4, when she and Zeus are talking, and not entirely happily talking with each other, Hera will remind Zeus that she is his consort, she is his co-equal in the realm of the gods, both biologically, because she's the daughter of Kronos, and one might say politically, culturally, because she says she is called Zeus's wife. Other people would like to, so others, not just Hera, but the community of gods, recognize her as Zeus's legitimate wife. I think that passage is popping up here.
So yes, so Sarah's saving. Sarah, do you want to read that for us?
I too am a god, and the same lineage as yourself. I am devious devising Cronos' eldest daughter, and an honourable not only on this ground only, but also because I'm your wife, and you are king over the gods.
Thank you. Exactly. So she's making a claim, and Aphrodite in this line is recognizing it.
Mm-hmm. But then this passage goes in a kind of surprising direction, maybe, perhaps, right?
Yes.
Hera just basically offers up a lie, right?
Absolutely. So Hera tells Aphrodite that what she would like to do is go to see Okeanos and Tethys. These are primordial gods, and Hera, describes Okeanos as the genesis of all the gods. We might say the generator, the maker of gods himself. Okeanos and Tethys live at the ends of the earth, and Hera intends to visit them, she tells Aphrodite, in order to patch up a marital dispute that keeps the husband and wife from lying in bed together. Now, this is a lie, it would seem. She is actually on her way to see Zeus. The narrator has already told us. On the other hand, it's not a lie, because she is, in her way, going to resolve a marital rift between great gods, a divine couple. So she's lying and she's not lying. And to pick up on the conversation we were just having, she also mentions that these two, this pair, Okeanos and Tethys, are foster parents of a sort to Hera. Took care of her when Zeus was overthrowing Kronos. So once again, we hear and feel this history of tumult among the generations of gods. She stays there, and even as she tells Aphrodite, who may not pick up on all the resonances in this passage, she tells Aphrodite, well, I am going to the ends of the earth, and I'm going to a place where we can make more gods if we want them. In short. So at this point, Aphrodite offers, not because Hera asks for it, Aphrodite offers something that is called, in the translation that we have online, it's called a girdle. The Greek is kestos himas. It is an embroidered strap. And the narrator tells us about this strap that there are particular, what is on it, what is depicted on this strap are, maybe we could actually have someone read this. It's around line 214 in the Greek.
Would anyone like to read? Helen, would you like to read? Or... Oh,
she's on mute.
Line 214?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. As she spoke, she loosed from her bosom the curiously embroidered girdle, into which all her charms had been wrought, love, desire, and that sweet flattery which stills the judgment even of the most prudent. She gave the girdle to Hera and said, "Take this girdle, wherein all my charms reside, and lay it in your bosom. If you will wear it, I promise you that your errand, be it what it may, will not be bootless." When she heard this, Hera smiled, and still smiling, she laid the girdle in her bosom. Aphrodite now went back into the house of Zeus.
Thank you.
There.
So, I'd like to look at that strap, that girdle, a little bit, because
may I say something about the girdle?
Yes,
Okay.
please.
Yeah, on Monday I was at the Louvre, and I took a picture of a girdle, but it's a girdle for a soldier. Okay, and the girdle has tassels, and it's from the 5th century, and it's the design has been borrowed from a girdle for a woman in the 7th century. So this is the contrary. It's a soldier who borrows a girdle from a lady from the past. Love and fight, they do seem to fit together, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Just a little insight, you know, and go on now.
That's beautiful. It's so appropriate for what we're doing here. So I just wanted to remark that there are 2 different accounts of what is on that himas, what is on that strap. The narrator gives us an account, and then Aphrodite gives us an account. And in the narrator's account, we are told charms, desire, beguilements, the whispered endearment. This is that steals away the nous, the intelligence, even from the most prudent or the most thoughtful. That's what's figured on the strap, and it sounds quite amazing already, as the narrator describes it. Aphrodite describes the strap and says everything is figured on it. Now, those are 2 rather different claims, as it seems to me. Yeah. One description is everything that might matter to Aphrodite. And the other is, well, from Aphrodite's point of view, everything. Something remarkable is happening here, and it seems to me quite subtle and delightful that we're being shown something about the way Aphrodite thinks, and we're being offered a sort of ironic counterpoint in the poetry. And any questions or remarks?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I got a couple of things here. First,
Sure.
I never noticed before that she says, your errand, be it what it may.
Sure.
As though she wasn't falling for this at all.
Uh-huh.
And the second question was that her errand won't be bootless.
That's right.
So, considering this is Aphrodite that's saying it, I could add a different meaning to that which we were discussing last week. So the beds of the gods are not fruitless. So did Zeus and Hera make a baby when they were on the mountaintop or not?
That's a terrific question. And I think we would need another hour to answer that question. Let me just say this, that Hera is a strange and unusual kind of mother. Does not especially like her own children, and in the Iliad we think of Hephaestus and Ares. Another one of her children is the goddess of childbearing, Eilithea. Another one is Hebe. But these are the figures we see most prominently in the Iliad. She's not interested in being a mother, and she's not, repeatedly, and this is not just in the Iliad, but in other stories about her too. I guess I'll just leave it at that. And So what is it, if you are right, and I think you are, that the unions of the gods are never fruitless, what is it that is born after Zeus and Hera come together? Something I discovered when I started to look for all the different moments that Hera is mentioned in the Iliad is that she is associated remarkably with words that have to do with the mind and thinking. So the first time, for example, she's ever mentioned in the poem, it is because she puts a thought into the mind of Achilles. That's the first time we ever hear of Hera. Another vivid example of this kind of thing, it happens frequently in all sorts of places, is when in Book 15, after she and Zeus have come to their terms with each other, she moves from Ida to Olympus, and she's described moving with the speed that a thought moves through a man's mind. So those are just two examples. They're the two most easy to talk about now. There are many others. And so it seems to me that what happens when Zeus and Hera come together is also a new mode of thought, and this is part of what I'm trying to write about, a new dispensation for the gods. And I guess maybe I'll just jump ahead for a moment and tell you what I think happens at the end of this scene. So I mean after this episode. So before, Zeus has been tyrannical. He has acted as though it is his will and his will alone that will govern the outcome of the war and whatever else. But it seems to me that after Book 14, Zeus is solicitous of Hera in a way that he has never been before. I mean, he's still prone to certain sorts of displays, but he invites her in Book 15 to think with him. And we see him in Book 16 hesitating. He wants to stop his son Sarpedon he wants to stop his death. And Hera says, "You can do that, but the rest of us gods will not approve you." And although he weeps tears of blood, although this is terribly painful for Zeus, he does that. He grants the will of the gods. So I think what is actually born, and I'm so grateful to you for asking that question, is a new dispensation, a new cosmos, you might say.
Wow.
Very good.
That's an amazing, beautiful answer. Wow. Really dazzling. What do we think about this, guys? Any questions? What's coming up for you as you're thinking about these passages? I guess
little sort of thought bubbles emerge. I'm not sure. Can you see those too, Claudia? Can others see them?
No, I just saw one. So Janet has a comment. Janet, please.
Yeah, from the beginning, I'm thinking BA, and you have Metis.
Yes.
They are coming together, and there should be some kind of balance between them. And Eros balances them out. Maybe that's the way they come together and they balance. And that's important for the cosmos to happen.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so if we think about this violent cycle that has been typical, let's say, of the gods before, Zeus and Hera find a way out of that. And I think it's precisely in the way that you're talking about, through somehow bringing BA and Metis together, strength and cunning intelligence coming together.
And that is also between Iliad and Odyssey. You have two different powers, and the whole poetry is together. You have to be together. You have to have BA and you have to have Metis for Homeric poetry it survived because of that. It has that both worlds coming together in this poetry.
Absolutely.
Beautiful. You know, we actually have some questions on Q&A.
Great.
If we have some time to take those.
Well,
So
Nadia, it's up to you.
yes. Okay. So if you want, you could also see them. So I encourage you to take your cursor over to the left-hand side of the screen and click on the Q&A icon. And we have two questions from Maria Zanthu, a very near and dear colleague, and their comments too, right? Can you see those?
Hi, Maria. I see Maria's. Are there others?
Yep, no, so that's it at the moment. So would you like to comment? So she's pointing us towards Iliad 14, 2:14 through 2:15. And I'm wondering if we have a translation of that. I can't remember in our notes.
It's in the chat bar.
Oh, it is in the chat bar. Fabulous. One moment, please. And Michael just posted the translation. Maybe you could read that, Michael.
Oh, okay. I just found this on Perseus. So it says, she spake and loosed from her bosom the broidered zone, curiously wrought, wherein are fashioned all manner of allurements. Therein is love, therein desire, therein dalliance, beguilement that steals the wits even of the wise. This she laid in her hands and spake and addressed her, take now and lay in thy bosom the stone curiously wrought, wherein all things are fashioned.
So this is the passage that Helen read, right? So Maria is pointing us towards the same passage.
And so the question is that it could gloss over the much debated word that means, so this word in Greek is kilothron, and it's an amazing word. Greg Naj has written a great deal about it, and Maria, I wish you were present and could join us in the conversation if you're there. Maria, tell us more, because as I read that word, I think about embroidery, I think about a certain kind of ornamentation, and there's a certain kind of magic that you might associate with that word as well. So I'm not sure where Maria, who is going to be visiting you soon, I think, to talk about lyric poetry. I'd like to know more about what she is thinking about there.
So you know what's great? We can continue this conversation on the Hour 25 website and continue to think about that word. Okay, right. After the event closed down, and Maria can join us there as well. So that's great. And I'm just wondering if there are any other. We would encourage. We have many other members of our wider community who are joining.
It looks like Maria's here. Hi, Maria.
Michael was kind enough to provide me access because I couldn't have access. What I would like to say is, first of all, Seemee, thank you very much for the wonderful presentation. I think you convinced me about what you were saying about Throna, and just it occurred to me this adjective of Aphrodite, and I think it is a good link between Poikilothrona and Chrysothron, which you have already referred to it. But now that you made me see this passage again, and I think that what Sappho probably does, and maybe we should see that in the light of this new interpretation of yours, is this proemion of Sappho, because what you just said about Hera and Aphrodite could correspond in a dynamic way to what you said, Hera and Aphrodite. Hera, is the goddess, the Presva Thea, and Aphrodite is the goddess of guile and love and so on. But still, this hidden tension that it is under their titles, their attributions, their considerations, and so on. Thank you very much. That was wonderful.
Thank you.
I just wanted to share this with all of you.
That's wonderful. So these are the kinds of conversations we have here at the Center for Hellenic Studies. It's a kind of paradise where we can. Yeah. It's like the hour 25 all the time.
Right. So people already have Maria just appeared suddenly. Maria's another one of our fabulous fellows at the center this spring, and so she's actually there at the center. That's why we could get her online so quickly. That was fantastic. That was a great.
And I would like to thank Michael for providing me access because I couldn't get through. So thank you very much, and I would like to thank Michael as well.
Thank you, Maria. Thanks for joining in.
So I'll leave you. I'm going to watch it from my office. Okay. Thank you very much.
And everyone can join us in May when Maria's going to join us.
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you. Well, what a lovely surprise. That was fabulous.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, so we're thinking about these beautiful epithets. I love that our conversation has been so focused on these specific words because it's always so helpful, really, to base our arguments upon those, right? And that's really how we're building these beautiful connections.
One more thing about this himas, this amazing object that Aphrodite gives to Hera. Hera takes it and she hides it in the folds of her clothes. You'll remember. And then we never hear of it again.
Right.
Never.
Huh.
I don't think she needs it to seduce her husband, who, as we recall, came to her many, at the beginning of their courtship in the form of a bird, a cuckoo, and sort of elicits her response to him. He seeks her out, of course, and he comes to her in the form of a bedraggled cuckoo who needs care and help, and she takes care of him. He hides in, one of these stories. He hides in her. He's held in close to her bosom, and then suddenly, of course, things happen. But I don't think she needs, so my claim is, I don't think she needs this Kestos Himas for the work that she's going to do. Hi, there's Maria. She's here from her office. So the Kestos Himas disappears. And what I'd like to propose is that this is something that is powerful and necessary for Aphrodite. To steal the minds, the nous of men. And without it, Aphrodite's power is going to be diminished, let's say. So later, when Zeus recites his catalog of lovers, right, Hera comes to him, she's a knockout, she's gorgeous, he wants to have sex with her right there and then. He doesn't want to go off to her private chamber, about which more can be said. You should ask Michael about that sometime. But he recites a litany of other lovers when he sees Hera. And you might think this could spoil the mood, but he offers this list of trysts that he's had with mortal women and even with goddesses. And that list reminds us of the power of Aphrodite, the power of that kind of Eros. And we hear from Zeus that he has never felt the kind of desire for any of these other women or goddesses that he now feels for Hera. Mm-hmm. And they come together then, and we might add that there's a story about the Trojan War. We find it in a fragment of Hesiod. We find it elsewhere, but there's a story that the Trojan War begins to bring to an end the age of heroes. Heroes being children born of unions between gods and human beings. So,
Seemee, I'm sorry, your computer moved just a little bit. Can you tilt it down just a little bit?
Down like that.
Yeah. Yep. Perfect. Great. Thank you so much for adjusting.
Sorry. So it seems to back to this litany, this catalog of lovers. It looks like we have an account of where heroes come from, how they come into being, and as we think about the new dispensation, the new order that I think Hera and Zeus are going to bring about together, we know too, and this is going to be something we see also on Hephaestus's shield, that the age of heroes will be over. There will no longer be unions between Zeus and beautiful mortal women. There will no longer be the kinds of riveting, charismatic, gorgeous men and women who rivet the attention of the gods and put them at odds with each other. So that seems to me that that catalog of lovers that Zeus offers is in some sense a kind of elegy. it's a kind of valedictory speech, of Zeus. A Zeus who was ruled by his appetites, his desires, his eros, and what is going to happen, I think because Hera really is beautiful and powerful. She shows herself in her beauty and power, is that in the radiance of that golden cloud, there is a kind of mysterious, I really believe it's a mysterious and unrepresentable union of seemingly irreconcilable forces. We might call those, with Janet, Ba and Metis, we might call them the masculine and the feminine, we might call them Zeus and Hera, right? These are energies that are coming together. They rejuvenate the earth at the end of that scene. And I think they both close an epic and begin one together.
That is stunning. Wow. Okay.
That's
truly dazzling. Yeah, it's such a beautiful subject and such beautiful comments. Janet, you're shaking, nodding. Please say.
Beautifully put. Very nicely done.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yes.
I know. I wish we had more time. It's 12:01, so unfortunately the time has just flown by. As I said, we can continue our conversation about this if you're willing. Our community members, I'm sure, will have lots of things to think about and to talk about now. This is really just the start of the conversation. I love the way you ended, really pointing us towards these conflicting forces again. I'm thinking about the distinction between philates and Eros and strife, love and strife. So I think there's so many things we can think about in the coming days as we continue this conversation. Seemee, thank you for joining us. Michael, thank you for joining us. And Maria, it's such a pleasure to have you join our conversation. It means so much to us. Thank you to all our community members, Helen, Janet, Sarah, and Bill.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you to all our viewers. We're so grateful that you joined us. Don't forget, 2 weeks, there'll be another live event. Slightly different time, 10 Eastern Daylight Time instead of 11, and if I'm remembering correctly. Anyway, check back on the Hour 25 website, and you won't miss a thing. Don't miss any of our meds. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.